Call to order at 7 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as stated.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Comments from the public are next. Mr. Superintendent?
Mr. Chairman, we have one public comment that was submitted through the regular board comment process today. It is from a candidate who is requesting support for the OSBA Board of Directors election later today. Miriam Calderon was the submitter. We have further several comments that were made tonight in the listening session. I want to thank everyone who came and contributed. The first comment related to gender re-identification imposed on local students, was okay with acceptance, believed that there was at times advocacy. There was a discussion about the video that is shown to staff here and that the district is primarily focused on acceptance. Second commenter, the cleaning of schools and the custodial staff levels in the district have resulted in less cleaning right now, and it is particularly concerning given the different diseases that we have floating around. Third commenter commented on the shortage of ground staff and the number of acres that are expected of each ground staff member in the district. The fourth staff member reported on custodial inadequacies in terms of the number of custodians available in the district, made more acute by absences and illness at this time, and reports that there were more custodians hired through ESSER funds during the last year due to COVID. A parent made a concern about special classroom at Meadow Ridge School, and that the staffing levels in that classroom are changing. Different people are in there as different staff have to cover, and they're shorthanded. A second staff member in the special classroom at Meadow Ridge also spoke about wage differences, concern about the district meeting IEP goals, and asked that consideration be given to other funds to keep staff safe. Some staff have been bruised during their work. Another community member made some comments about our sound system for online meetings. Also questioned what Director Nyquist had said in the last meeting regarding oversight of construction projects. Requested also to return public comment to the meetings. Finally, a parent who had taken their child out of public school had asked for some assurance, some improvement in the schools so that trust could be returned and that re-enrollment could occur. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, next up is board business. First thing is kind of an exciting one. We get to recognize our Assistant Principal of the Year recognition for our very own Jessica Smith. Come on up. Okay, let me read this. So Greater Albany Public Schools, this certificate recognizes and congratulates Jessica Smith, Coalition of Oregon School Administrators, Assistant Principal of the Year. She won it for the whole state, okay? So we have been very fortunate. Our district has been recognized in many ways this year, and this is just one of the things that we should be really proud of. And everyone should go out of their way to thank all our teachers and staff, because they're carrying a lot of water, they're doing a lot of work, and we need all that positivity to help our kids achieve success in their lives. So Jessica, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
I should have given this to her. Okay. Next up, superintendent evaluation. Okay, so description. So I'm going to describe the review process for us to evaluate the superintendent, okay? This is something that we have to do publicly and let everyone know how it works. Board members will submit evaluation review, which will contain both scores and comments via Google form to our board secretary, Chris Green, to board chair and vice chair. Me and Brad will get those. Board secretary will provide superintendent evaluation review document, scores and comments by each board member to both Brad and I. Board chair will review superintendent evaluation document with board members and superintendent in executive session in January 9th, 23. Board chair and vice chair will prepare superintendent evaluation review summary to present in a regular board meeting on the 23rd of January in 23. I will review superintendent's evaluation review summary in a regular board meeting, and board will vote to approve superintendent evaluation review summary as presented. One of the things our superintendent has asked for, which makes a lot of sense, and there's lots of different ways to review anyone. If you're interested, you can go online and see. He wants comments. So one of the things that we all can do is you can put numbers 1 to 10, right? So if you get evaluated in 20 different ways and you have 20 different numbers, that doesn't really help you. But we want to improve as much as possible, and so he wants comments. And so one thing that we'll try to do is provide him an ability to hear what we're saying, and I hope he'll do the same for me and help direct me in ways that I can do a better job. Chris, did we cover that now? Okay. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Michael.
Thank you for the work on this, but when I saw it, at the end of the day, a lot of dates, a lot of times, but it's, at the end of the day, it's us, it is only us talking to ourselves and then talking to the superintendent for an evaluation, and there are different ways to do it, and I just think this is a very simple way to doing it, and I think there are ways to get input from, we are just part-time, we are really part-time officials other than our time here. And I just don't see how I can give, like one of his key points is the culture at the organization, creating a culture of customer service, and how that's being implemented, how it's being rolled out, I really don't know. I really don't know. So I just think there needs to be a way for the admin level or frontline workers to have a say. Now, having said that, ultimately our discussion produces the final document. Okay, so I'm not trying to take away from us. I just think a way to get a bigger picture makes sense.
Sure, and I hope if someone has something to share, I know I try to be open to hear people, what they want to say, so please do the same with all of us board members and let us know what you're thinking and why. Like I said, just giving him numbers or giving us numbers isn't really providing much learning, right? So if we can hear things from the public, if we can hear things from the staff, that'll allow us to improve our district, and that's the bottom line, what we all want to do. Anything else, Michael?
No, I may bring this up. I think as time goes on, I just think it's more than us having, conversations out there. I think giving the interested parties a chance to weigh in on paper makes a lot of sense. I think it's more thorough. And this way, and I realize, I think the history of these, I think it's very common for just the board and the superintendent sit down and talk about positives and negatives, probably mostly positives. I think that's pretty common. I just think it doesn't take that much to go a little bit more. You know, the OSBA would help us and do a more thorough evaluation. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Next up, OSBA Board of Directors. Description: the board will vote to either nominate a candidate or abstain in voting for a candidate. The candidate will represent Greater Albany Public Schools in Region 10. On the OSBA board candidate options are Miriam Cummins and Jason Curtis. Do I hear a motion?
I move to nominate Jason Curtis to represent Region 10 on the OSBA board.
Okay. I will second that. I think we're going to come up with the 2-2. Do I hear any other motions?
Well, procedurally, you have a motion on.
Okay, I have a motion, my fault. Okay, so all in favor of Jason Curtis?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
No.
I'm opposed. Don't know Jason. Did tell the other candidate late last week that she had my support. Try for my word to be good, so that would be my reason for declining to support the nomination.
Okay,
Yeah, I want to be clear. I don't really know Jason. I do know Miriam, and so my support is more of a positive for Miriam than it is a negative on Jason.
do we need to go through so we have 2-2? Do I hear another motion? No other motions heard?
Well, so let me procedurally, so we
Do-
tied.
Do we have the ability to call the fifth board member for a tiebreaker?
So before you do that,
Brad, I think he has to be present on the
Yeah.
roll to affect
What?
business.
what?
He would have to
I think
be
it's
here.
to be here.
Why is that?
He,
People participate in meetings telephonically all the time. The legislature went through a whole session telephonically.
okay.
So, but before we get there, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we select Miriam Cummings with our vote for the OSBA board position under discussion.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
So we call? Is that what we've decided we do? Or we wait for a call-in, or what do we do?
What's that?
The other option would be somebody could make a motion to abstain.
Okay?
What, I think you have to have 3 votes for a motion to pass.
Yeah.
The motion that the board abstains from voting.
Right. 2-2 as we,
Because they can't, right, come to consensus.
Well,
It's in essence an abstention because we can't make a choice. I mean, if we're deadlocked at 2-2, it becomes an abstention almost by
Yes.
default.
So, Mr. Chair, I would suggest we continue with our agenda, and we get to a place around 8 o'clock. If we're not finished, we take a recess. You can contact the member who is not with us physically this evening and see if he's available to participate in tonight's meeting telephonically for the purposes of, what agenda item is that?
OSBA Board of Directors.
There's an agenda item with it, though, right? I can't find it. You're looking at it. What?
E3.
It would be E3, right. So that we continue with our board meeting at least until around 8 o'clock. You can call if the other board member is then available. We can revisit the issue. If not, by lack of action, we are abstaining. So that's how I would recommend proceeding.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll continue on with the board. Right now, it stands at 2-2, and we'll see if the fifth board member is able to participate. Superintendent's comments.
Thank you, Chairman Morse. Just a few things. First of all, really big group with a lot to say at the listening session, and we are working on some of the things that were brought up tonight. Of course, you heard what the comments were. In particular, I think we're not just looking at a salary analysis, we'll also be looking at staffing ratios to students. And I know that we are working on that with Heather as well. There is the ratio to square footage, which is also true and puts a different spin on things, and we'll be working on that as well. I did hear some urgency in that. One of the things that has happened in the past couple of years is we have tried to fix given salaries. And you heard a little bit here tonight around how fixing one group's salary deficit can sometimes lead to other groups thinking that they weren't necessarily handled. And so we need to be very thoughtful and work across all of our employees in that regard. Finally, Central School is not on the agenda tonight, but I know that Brad and Roger were both in meetings there, and we are working, hope to give you guys some information here pretty quick around the potential costs of solutions for Central. Went to Millersburg last Friday morning, met with City Manager Kevin Kreitman, and we discussed the property. I know that there are plans that the district's long-range facility had engaged in. They handed me a report from Glass Architects, or at least a map that came from a report. So this coming week, I'm going to want to go out and get a hold of that, and we'll share that out. Millersburg will be working towards a fairly simple agreement that will grant us the property directly behind City Hall for a school site, and then I think we'll have to spend some time looking at mitigation of some wetland there, but they have a vision for that piece of property. The terms that were established in the meeting are that they will give it to us, we may use it free of charge, and we can incorporate that into our plans. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, G, board reports. Michael, do you have anything?
I do. I had some notes here. It's not so much a report, it's a request. Do off the top of my head. Last spring, as we prepared the budget, in Rob Saxon's budget report, he mentioned we would most likely be getting a grant from the legislature, House Bill 4030, I think it's called the Staff Retention Bill. And he mentioned in the budget message, and he told us that we'll probably get it, but we'll have to take an action on it to receive it on the board. And here it is, December. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I guess all I'm asking for is a report on what we asked for, what we sent to the DOE, and kind of a summary of the grant.
We can get that for you.
Well, for me, but I think it would be good to have it as part of a board meeting. It's okay, so. That's it.
Roger, do you have anything?
Well, I want to follow up on Michael's. I guess. The first question is, have we received the money?
So you receive it in a grant, and then you can claim it with expenditures. So we didn't get all the money. We then have to submit expenditure claims that match the purposes of the grant. Would that be fair?
We received the grant, but we have not expended it yet, so we haven't claimed it.
Have we not done some things with that?
Yes,
Okay,
but we haven't claimed it yet.
okay.
We do have a plan, and it's been adopted by ODE, the plan.
Okay.
Well, then
We will share that
I
with
jumped the
you.
gun a little bit, but I think it would still be helpful to review that in a
Yeah.
board fashion.
No, that sounds great. To share it with the public makes perfect sense. Roger, anything else?
Yeah, I do. I have more. The legislature is going into session in January. We got a proposed legislative agenda that was a statewide agenda that that I thought personally was not adequate. And so I don't know what we want to do as a board or when we want to do it, but I just want to take the opportunity to point out the disparity we have right now in this state with young people, in that if they get a minor in possession, either physical possession or a minor in possession by consumption of alcohol or marijuana, they get an MIP. And part of the it's a minor in possession. And part of the minor in possession process is there's some outreach and an interview to see whether or not they need help getting to them at a young age. That same citation does not exist today in Oregon for Class 1 federal drugs, for heroin, for cocaine, for anything else that one would take. And over time, it'll cost school districts, it'll cost society, it'll cost kids a lot. So I hope to see legislation that corrects that error, and I hope when it does, we could support it. Amongst other things, and I don't need to talk about all of them tonight, but I did want to flag that one.
Yes, I would have to agree with what Roger's saying. You get in more trouble currently if you're a minor with alcohol than with cocaine. Okay, Brad.
Okay, been working with Roger and Skip Hamilton, trying to look at Central School and how we're going to try to take the allocated money and make that a better facility. So we're continuing to work on that, and I felt like we had some really good progress on some possibilities, some lines that we might be able to look at things in a slightly different way to be able to achieve more than we originally thought we were going to, because the costs got way out of whack on the initial look at that. Second thing, at the listening session tonight, we got to hear some of the trials and issues of staff, custodial and grounds, and they're incredibly passionate portrayals of some of the things that they're having to do, and it's eye-opening. And I know that I've talked to Superintendent Gardner, and these things are being looked at, and we are trying to do our best to get there to help, because I can definitely see that there's some need there.
Okay, thank you. I do not have any reports today. So next up is our student board member reports. Which one of you have decided to go first?
So, since the last board meeting, we had the food drive that occurred prior to Thanksgiving, and it was very successful. I believe all items were donated to Fish in Albany, and I did a little research, and I saw that Fish started in 1973 by community leaders and local churches. And I wanted to point out that next year, 2023, will be their 50th year anniversary for helping our community. National Honor Society induction ceremony happened on November 29th. This week is Spirit Week at West Albany, and it's probably my favorite week. Today was pajama day, and I quite literally rolled out of bed and went to school. Wrestling is growing out West. I have seen a huge leap in numbers on both the boys and girls team. The giving tree is now up in the front lobby of West, and students can take a tag off the tree and donate gifts to West Albany families. High steppers have had competitions over the weekends, placing very well. Basketball season is in the swing of things, with all girls and boys teams traveling to Eagle Point this past Friday. Needless to say, it was a very long Friday for basketball players. Model UN has been meeting every Monday and been working on researching Norway. Environmental Club had a guest speaker come and talk about career opportunities in environmental science. I believe PSAT scores came out last week. Tomorrow is the Youth Job Fair at LBCC. All juniors will attend and go through mock interviews. Juniors have been working on filling out their resume and will give their resume to at least 3 companies. This is a really good opportunity for job offers and interview experience. This Friday is the talent show, and tomorrow is also Winter at West at 7, where you can go see West Albany Band and Choir perform a very festive show. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. From South Albany, we had our seasonal blood drive on December 7th. We made 104% of our goal and had a lot of first-time donors as well as returning donors. We had more students wanting to donate than appointments available, which is a milestone we haven't hit at South Albany before, so that was amazing. We had our winter formal last Saturday. You can still see some decorations here in the Commons. We have trees and streamers up some places. And then we had good attendance and made a bit of money for the senior class in their graduation on that one. We also have our Spirit Week going on right now. Today also happened to be pajama day. I had to run home and change out of that before coming here. And we're continuing tomorrow with favorite holiday movie character. It's an interesting theme. We had the SAT on December 3rd. We had a bit low attendance, but I had kids from all over, from South and West, and some from Corvallis and other places as well. Winter sports are in full swing. We have swim, girls basketball, and boys basketball all playing tomorrow, with wrestling done until January. The job fair is going on. Happened to skip this year's senior class, unfortunately, but our juniors are heading over to LBCC as well. And we had a winter choir concert and winter band concert last week at the Albany Performing Arts Center. And for clubs, our Key Club is working on bell ringing with Salvation Army every Saturday, still up until Christmas. This Saturday should be the last one for this year. And then FCCLA is still setting up community volunteering with Furniture Share, and they've started working on selling brownies and Rice Krispies on campus, so it's a nice snack going on during break time. Metcha had their winter celebration, also on December 3rd. They had a live band with food, and attendance was, they had a full house. It was a community event, and every table in here was just packed full of people. It was about 5 hours long, and from when I was there, it was pretty fun. The Youth Activism Club they're having a planting this Saturday at 1 at Periwinkle Park, continuing a project we've been working on for the past couple of years, was just getting shrubs and trees up and going there, and revitalizing the waterway and the roots that were once there. They're still working with district and admin on a anti-discrimination and anti-hate speech project. Avid Leadership is selling homemade gnomes in the office and to the broader community as well as families. And then Avid also had the Corvallis Fire Department come in today as a guest speaker and talk to about some career opportunities and volunteer opportunities over at Corvallis. They have a resident volunteer program that they shared with us today. And Leadership's Tree of Joy gift drive is in full swing with wrapping happening today and tomorrow. and being delivered Wednesday. If you don't know what that is, that's our annual gift drive where we adopt 40 kids from our feeder elementary schools and just collect gifts from our different classes and donate them to the said kids. And that's about all for us.
Thank you to both of you. Sounds like a lot going on at the high schools, as it should be. Next up, committee, community, and school presentations. First up is School Resource Officer, and Mr. Superintendent, you got this.
I'll introduce Officer Jen Williams, SRO, and Police Chief Marsha Harnden for the report, and it's there for you to click on in your agenda.
Good evening, board members and public. My name's Jen Williams, and I am the SRO along with Curtis Bell. He's been out with a shoulder injury. So it's been one school resource officer for 22 schools. So needless to say, I've been a tad bit busy. So today for our report, this is from basically July 1st to the end of November. The report, we had 8 offense reports. They included a juvenile complaint, an assault, a harassment, a suspicious circumstance, a tagging graffiti, theft of a bicycle, and a weapons offense. Those were all in the following schools: Calapooya, West Albany, Meadow Ridge, North Albany Middle School, South Albany High School, and Timber Ridge. So those offenses came out of those schools. When you break it down by age, those were the offenses. In those 8 offenses, we contacted 12 juveniles. Of those juveniles, we had 1 12-year-old, 3 13-year-olds, 1 14-year-old, 6 15-year-olds, and 1 17-year-old. When you break it, for a total of 12. When you break it down by race, there was 10 white students contacted, 1 black student, and 1 Hispanic student. And of those, the sex of those were 4 females and 8 males. And so one of 8 is the offense report, yes, but we do so much more, or I have done so much more education and intervention that don't get made in this report. These are just going out and making contact with individuals, talking to them about the consequences of their behavior, and where if that doesn't stop, they may have further consequences. So that has been extremely positive. I can tell you out of, usually when I came from the patrol side and you deal a lot with adults, the one thing that I've noticed and is extremely positive is that majority of the time when you deal with the adults, they try to avoid you after you have contact with them. With juveniles, there's not that necessarily. I have many of these individuals that I spoke about today, I've had contact with afterwards. It's checking in with them, it's seeing how things are going. One of the real positive contacts that I had is in one of the cases at West Albany. There was 3 individuals that were arrested for an assault. All those individuals I've checked in with, and they're not, none of the 3 are at West anymore, but yet they're still moving on with their education through AOS. And that has been an extremely positive development for them, even though in the beginning the contact with me seemed negative for them. They had many things that came out of it as far as new relationships with family members that they didn't have prior to this, and excelling in school when that wasn't happening before. So that's one of the positive things that have really come out of my contact and out of these 8 reports. We also conducted 22 lockdown drills, and from the beginning of school all the way to, I think, October 30th was our last one that we were, that needed to be done. So I know that the public saw that as a positive thing and also requested us to do Albany Christian. So we also did that too outside of the GAPS district. So they saw the importance of it and wanted that as well. Does any of the board have any questions about my report?
Actually, you said you had 22 lockdown drills. How would you grade the performance? With the school, you don't have to single anybody out, but just overall, did anybody have some difficulties, or did everybody pretty well have the procedures down? How'd that work?
It actually was very positive. We had a lot of student buy-in, and I think that that's because we're in a place now where these are like, for myself, we're like the earthquake drills back in, when I was in grade school. It just becomes something that is normalized for them. So there was a huge amount of buy-in from them and the staff as well. And they really wanted to get it right. And they really looked to us to kind of guide them in how the I Love You Guys Foundation was set forth those requirements. And so they did really well at the lockdowns, and we had a lot of buy-in. The things that we found during those were maybe some small things like no window coverings where there probably should have been window coverings, some minor facilities issues, but other than that, it went great.
Javier, go ahead.
Andy, okay. Okay. Would you help me understand this arrest type by race and by sex? I'm noticing, I'd just like to understand how that happens, or what is involved in a student being arrested.
So out of those 8 reports that you see, even though there's 8 reports, there might have been 2 students involved in one of those reports. In the assault report, there was actually 3 students involved in that. So we just break it down by what the race is, by who we contacted in those reports.
The O and the T?
Yes,
What is the definition, sorry? Oh, I see, arrest.
yeah,
Arrested
arrest
and
versus,
taken into custody.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? I'd just like to say thank you very much, Officer Williams, and to Officer Bell when he recovers, and Chief Harden, thank you. One of the things I really think that's really important, and I love the fact that you guys are back in the schools, is that you're allowed to be someone positive in these young men and women's lives, and give them someone that they know cares about enough to keep them on the straight and narrow, and you talking about the fact that you have some of these kids coming back to you and kind of, one of the sorry but truthful things about some of our youth, they don't have a lot of champions in their lives. They might not have the best situation at home, and even an old guy like me, it helps to have people that support you and are going to back you and want to help celebrate your successes and hold you accountable when you don't do what you need to do. And I think young people need it even more, and that's one of the things that I would say, at least in my life, and I think probably everyone at the table's life, even our young group, my teachers and coaches helped me become who I am, and that was huge, those relationships. And the idea that we're able to provide a slightly different angle of a relationship with our SROs, I think that's just positive, so thank you very much. I do have a question, although it really doesn't have much to do with this. I know we had an arson at West right before, in the end of the summer or so.
Yes.
Whatever ended up happening with that?
You would ask me that.
This isn't a quiz,
I know.
it just reminded me about it, and I meant to follow up on that, and
Yes, that was a call that was handled by patrol.
Okay.
And not by us because we weren't in session then. I know that they did get referred, the ones that were able to by age, because I know there were some young ones in there. And even if they didn't get referred to the juvenile department, they were referred, I believe, to the fire department for some fire setter education. And so that, I do know the call that you're talking about, and I believe that that was the outcome.
okay. For those of you who don't know, we had a fire started at West Albany Stadium that we were pretty fortunate not to lose more than we did. So, but thank you. If you find out any more, I am curious
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Superintendent, anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate you being here.
Okay, next up, school report, Lafayette. Our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Harlan.
Yeah, I'd like to invite up Principal Elisa Stevens, who will share a little bit about Lafayette Elementary.
First, I'm going to remember how to share my screen because that's exciting. It's been a while. We lose our Zoom capabilities when we don't practice them. And I am thankful for that, by the way. It's okay to laugh. All right. All right. Good evening to the members of the board. It is my pleasure to share just a glimpse of the scenes, the behind the scenes of Lafayette Elementary. Schools are complex environments with so many moving parts that it is difficult to share everything that is going quite amazingly at Lafayette. Oops, no, I want to go back. Our school mission was created 2 years ago. It's engage, educate, and empower every child every day. And then we put on the tag, let's take on the world, Lions. That one is from Ginger Covington. Thank you, Ginger, for that one. We created this 2 years ago, and we revisited it this fall just to make sure that's still what our staff would like to do. And we will continue to review this every year. And based on the staff and the students who come to Lafayette, we may need to change it. So some quick facts that are up here on the screen. We have 266 students, and we have the ethnicity broken down there. Approximately 45% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, and we are one of the schools that has free breakfast and free lunch for all children, and that is much appreciated. In addition, 16% of our students qualify for English Language Development, or ELD. 17% qualify for special education services. At our school, we have a foundation skills classroom. We have resource, and then we have a lot of kiddos who engage in speech services. So this is the really fast part. Points of pride. I could go on for a good hour on my points of pride, and I would love to take you through my school anytime you want to stop by. We have amazing and dedicated staff. One of the things I'm super proud about is that we had visitors from out of state right after Thanksgiving. We had a lot of staff members out and a lot of things not covered, and they couldn't tell. And I think that really speaks to who my staff is and that they fill in the gaps wherever they are without being asked. And it's just really, really, I'm very proud of that. In addition, we have effective teacher leadership teams in instruction. We actually have teachers who lead our staff development around quality teaching of English learners or all learners. We have the foundations team, which you may have heard in the past as PBIS, or the positive behavior. And it is all teacher-led. I just kind of sit there, and they're thankful that I'm not leading the meeting because I'm a squirrel. And then we have a wellness and behavior team, and That is comprised of my counselor, my dean of students, my behavior assistant, and my special ed teacher and myself. And we work with students who have higher incidence of behavior and those who have challenging behavior. 55% of our staff have gone through the collaborative problem-solving training and are certified in that. Another point of pride is that we begin all interaction with behavior as best we can, unless it's a safety issue, using empathy. And we noticed coming out of the pandemic, and you may have heard that children are have challenging behavior and they're really struggling emotionally. And so when you start with, how can I help, instead of what's wrong, why did you do this, kids are much more readily able to share their feelings and their thoughts, and they'll be like, oh, well, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. Another point of pride is the student leadership in our building. And we have fifth graders who help as recess buddies, run notes, do the flag, help us in our assemblies, and do morning announcements. And I'm really excited about, we have South Albany High School mentors. And Zaya, I don't know if you remember me, but I was your principal for 1 year. And it's just so exciting because one of our mentors is a former student of mine at Clover Ridge and another former Lafayette student. So I love the connection and community that we have. Another pride is we have the community partnership with our neighborhood church, who in addition to the Tree of Joy at South Albany also adopt children and families and help support them in the holiday times. I also want to do a huge thank you to United Way for donating over 600 books to our first and second graders that will be sent home with them before winter break. This is going to be no surprise to you. Challenges. I agree with the custodian part too. I didn't put that in my PowerPoint, but the biggest challenge that we are facing is the shortage of substitutes, both certified and classified. I wake up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning and I start triage. That's before the emergency room. Last week we had 4 classrooms not covered with subs, and nobody but myself, my dean, and my PE teachers, and my counselor to teach. So I taught 36 first graders so that I'm not destroying any one system in my school. So I love it, and I love teaching in the classroom. And what we're doing is we're depleting the effectiveness of our systems in our schools. And so then it takes away from the whole school. And so it just is what it is. And I just want you to be able to understand that I'm not unique, that this is not unique to Lafayette. And we're starting to see burnout from our school leaders. And I don't mean principals, I mean our coaches, our deans, everybody that pitches in, and we are so thankful for them. Today was the first day since November 3rd that we didn't have to have any substitutes in our building, and we did celebrate that. Another challenge, and it just is what it is also, and it's staffing, and you've heard that, and some of you experience that also in your businesses. And that is, but it's even more difficult for Title I schools because the staff have to be highly qualified, which includes passing, either they have to have 2 years of a college or a college associate's degree, or pass a test. And there's a lot of people who are not up to date on their Algebra 2 to teach small reading groups. So it is what it is. It's a federal expectation, and we're working really hard to recruit parents who have bachelor degrees hanging out in their background. It says our approach. So our school improvement plan dovetails nicely with the district priorities. And we did that very purposefully. The district priorities are talked about at our foundations meeting, which is around behavior, and our district priorities are talked about in my instructional leadership team before we get into our work. Our school improvement plan is around quality teaching of English learners, the implementation of foundations. So thank you, Albany, for bringing Safe and Civil Schools to us. It has really helped us shore up our green zone behavior system. And for Lafayette, I brought in collaborative problem solving, which is a nationally recognized protocol and work around trauma-informed care in children with challenging behaviors. And then rigorous and engaging academics. We are really focused on small group core, assessing and refining practices, and then math. Let's see, what did I want to talk about that? One of the things I would like you to know is that we use data from multiple sources to come to these goals. Reading data, math data, surveys from Safe and Civil Schools, and sometimes we have the Oregon survey, that's for the TEL survey, right? And we also use the Oregon Integrated Systems Framework from ODE. And we look at that data all the time. And so no less than every 6 weeks, we look at groups in particular and rearrange them. But there's some kids, like, I want to know, like, weekly, how are they doing? And so it's really important. And schools are really data-driven and scientifically based. All right. Looking forward, like I said, our mission is engage, educate, and empower every child every day. Our approach is that we meet children where they are and provide them with the most appropriate resources to grow as fast and as far as they can go. We also are working hard on understanding that behavior is communication, and that we all have strengths and that we all have lagging skills. And Stuart Ablon is one of my absolute favorite people in the world, and he says, kids do well if they can. And in other words, we have to teach the skills kids need to succeed, which includes problem solving, flexibility, and frustration tolerance. And I think that one of the most important things that we as educators can do is stay current with research and practices around behavior. Punishment does not teach students the skills they need to become productive community members. Sending them home to where they may be practicing those maladaptive skills is not helping a child grow and learn. Taking time to learn about, understand, and implement strategies that grow thinking skills and social skills is critical to staff success with students who display behaviors. Albany is headed in the right direction with the work with Safe and Civil Schools, teaching zones of regulation, Kelso's Wheel, and starting to use our DESA, which kind of analyzes kids' strengths. And that can help us pinpoint those strengths in their emotional needs and a needs assessment. And what do our kids say? It was kind of funny. I just picked 2 random kids. So Jack, you've already met. He was one of our all-stars. He says, the teachers do their best for students. I like how all the kids do their best and help each other. And then I was so impressed with Sherlyn. She said something very similar. I love that we can read books in the library. I'm like, that's fun. And she says, learn about math and help other kids. So helping and empathy is at a core, and I think it's rubbing off on our students, and it reflects the work that we've been working on. And thank you for your time today.
Any questions?
I do have one.
Yes.
So, in your comment that students want to know how they're doing and that schools are data-driven, are you getting, tell me about how you get those test results back, and is it in time, and are we getting them enough data?
So in an elementary school, most of the tests are done orally right there. So a lot of our reading tests is called the DIBBLs, or the Dynamic Indicators of Beginning Literacy Skills. And so we sit with the kid and they read to us, so we're getting instant data from that. And then with some kids, we check in with them once a week on those skills, and for some kids, we check in every 2 weeks, and then some kids, we just check in 3 or 4 times a year. And so that's instant data. And then also with our Easy CBM work, which is around math, we also get instant data back. So it's really, really nice, and it's very handy. And then we take an extra step to do another probe, but it's all driven right here in the school, so we get the data back right away.
That's great to hear. Because I was hung up on, we test in the spring, and we don't hear from the state or the Department of Ed until the next September.
Yeah.
And by then, the next school year has started, and it's a little late to make a large course correction, if you will. But what you're telling me is, I don't really need to worry about that so much, because you're doing it in the classroom, in real time, and you guys are making decisions for the next year, and you have the data you need to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you, and I agree, and what you were talking about was you need to reach kids where they are and be behavior and have them there. A lot of the things we hear a lot about on the board are classroom clears and things like that. Obviously, the goal in education that I think all of us have all our kids normalized as much as we can and bring them in a normal system to the maximum extent possible. With that said, in your opinion, where does that lie? I mean, to me, after you reach a certain amount of classroom clears and all the kids are leaving the class and they're sitting in the PE room, we got to move on at some point. So I'd be curious, since you're down there in the trenches, where you fall out with that.
So I truly believe in preventative care, and it's just like I kind of run my behavior model like a medical model, in that I know which kids come into us stressed every day because we meet every other week. 1 week we meet around students who have high intense behavior plans, and then the next week are those who are starting to, what we like to call bubble. They're bubbling up. And we meet around those kids. And so on a normal day, I'm greeting every child as they come in. I have 2 students who come in and check with me personally. I have a couple students who check in personally with my counselor in the morning. So we have these plans of support in place. And it's also based on data. So we can know what time of day they really need support, what types of support. If I need someone to do math in a different setting because I know that's a real stressor for them, so they might come to my office, and that's what I call my prep time. I don't get prep time, but I like to call it that. And that's funny, isn't it?
I got it. I was a teacher, I got that.
Yeah. So we tailor these plans for children to succeed, and then we slowly take those plans away to build up that resilience. And one of the things I talked about was the frustration tolerance. My golly, children have like no frustration tolerance, and we're really seeing that in kindergarten. And when you work with behavior, it's not fixed overnight. It's not a 2-3 week, 4-week thing. It takes sometimes years, and that's what's super, super frustrating for any staff member. I used to joke at Clover Ridge, we had kinder, first, and second grade, and we'd always check in on a kid who was in 3rd grade, and they're like, oh, they're doing great. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I'm like, oh, it's our hard work that we did in kinder. It's the hard work we did in 1st. It's the hard work we did in 2nd grade. And then they're like, oh, I get it now, in the 3rd or 4th year, or the 5th year of their education. So it comes down to, I guess, knowing who your kids are, having those plans in place, having staff be flexible with you, that our children are not cut from cookie cutters. They are really unique, fun, divergent children. And we have really seen that in the last 3 years, but especially in the last 6-8 years.
Sure, and I think that's great. I guess my question gets a little bit more basic. If you're, and this is what we get to do, we get to answer parents who are,
Yes.
saying, hey, Johnny has killed my kid's class 5
Yep.
times in the last month.
Yep.
When is too much, too much? And, there is a point. And so I guess I'm asking you where, when that parent asks us those questions, where can we say that point is?
That's a very good question, and I don't know that I have the exact answer for a particular incident. I can only speak to what I do and what I do at my school, and that is really prevent behavior from occurring in the first place, because we have such strong supports in place, and work with community like Lynn County's wraparound services, that we mitigate that in the classroom. But I can only speak to my system and the systems that I've worked on.
I understand it, and
Yep.
obviously, we're trying to minimize it, and we're trying to, but we're still not really getting to the answer for that parent,
No.
about, hey, Johnny's not getting math class, every week because a kid's going out of control. And I understand we need flexibility, but I also think it's fair for our parents to expect their children to be able to be in a learning environment.
Could I,
Sure.
I want to ask Elise to talk a little bit about, you saw on the first slide, 55% of her staff were trained, and she spoke to me the other day about the difference that makes. Can you talk a little bit about what that training means for your staff?
So, give a little background. I'm from North Dakota. I'm a German farmer. Like, you do what you're told, right? Compliance is a huge part of my background and makeup, because that's how I was raised. And then I went through parenthood and have 2 children with neurodivergency, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. That, punishment is really not gonna work. And I actually saw it in my students. It was when we first brought CHAMPS in, Safe and Civil Schools, to work with us. And I'm like, I think I told Sue, Mama Bear doesn't work anymore with these kids. Mama Bear does not correct the behavior. And so I personally sought out work around, they had mentioned, I said, I need something else. I need something else to work with kids. And it's the collaborative problem solving. And so Dr. Green and Dr. Ablon, a long time ago, created this program, and it's Plan A, which is compliance. You do what I tell you to do. And there are definitely times that we have to do that throughout the day. Safety is a number one thing, and there are definitely times that I'm like gonna put, I don't want to say put the hammer down, but I'm gonna stop the behavior then with my adult will. Plan C is Plan C is planned ignoring. It's like, I know the behavior that you're doing is right now is maladaptive. Like, you are gonna throw a tantrum if I ask you to hand in your iPad right now. I'm gonna ignore that for now, but we're gonna come back to that behavior later and talk about it. And then Plan B really talks about what's a child's concern. So I had a student yesterday punching other kids, shoving them in the hallway, and I'm like, dude, what is going on? And I said, so something about, I'm noticing that how you handle frustration at recess really seems to not work for you. It's not safe. And I said, what's going on? So he's telling me this whole story about he's fine at the big recess where we have 6 classes out there, but at his recess, there's only 2 classes out there. And I said, well, sorry, child safety is my concern. So he shared his concern, but his concern was he was afraid because there weren't as many adults out there to see what would happen so they would believe his side of the story. That was his concern. I'm like, it kind of blew me away. I'm like, oh, like that makes sense to me. That's a real concern, because when you only have 2 adults as opposed to 6 adults that can see everything. So then we came up with a plan. And I said, what ideas do you have to fix this? And he came up with some ideas. They're not gonna work right now, but we've started, and what he is learning, let me tell you what he's learning. Because I did bring this up here. He's learning how to take perspective. He's learning to know what my concern is, so that's perspective taking. That safety, even for mean kids, is important. All kids deserve to be safe, even if they're mean, is what I told him. He's learning how to handle his feelings when he's angry or frustrated. He's handling change. And there's this whole area of thinking and thinking skills and self-reflection skills that we all have. So language and communication, attention and working memory, our emotion and self-regulation, which is a lot of the work that we're working on right now in schools, cognitive flexibility, and then social thinking. And this is a checklist of all these things. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm good at some of these, and I'm not so good at some of these. And that's not when I'm stressed. right? So we take this skill list, I stress a child out, and they're gonna have what we call lagging skills. And it's almost like having a reading deficit or not being able to read well, in that they are not able to, for example, Mark, can't say his name, a kid, he wasn't able to read the situation, and because he doesn't have that social thinking yet. And by doing this Plan B, which it doesn't take that much time, but takes time to learn about and incorporate it into your practice, it allows kids to start building these skills. It takes a lot of time. And I mean, first grade, second grade, third grade. So over half of my staff has been trained. The other half are going to be trained this fall. I actually get to talk to Dr. Ablon, which is one of my favorite things ever. He's kind of and I have a video I was going to send to you all, and I think I will now.
Okay.
Just watch like the first 15 minutes. He does even a better job of explaining it than I do, so.
Well, thank you very much for explaining that.
Yeah.
I know patience is a virtue, but on some of those issues, it's hard to be patient when you're a parent looking out for your own child.
And I will speak as a parent in Albany. I understand that because my children encounter things too throughout the day. But what I do at home is share with them, just think about where are they coming from, what trauma did this child have in their background that we need to really share that empathy with, and start with, how can I help that kid? And that's hard. Like, that's hard if you come from one of those, a background like mine, where it's like, do what you're told, because you might die underneath a tractor, right? Yeah.
May I share an observation?
Quickly, yes, because we said at 8 o'clock we were going to talk to Eric. So.
Thank you. One of the things that I have noticed, having gone to school to the schools and visited with Andy, is observing how principals get to actually acknowledge students, right? And your school is a very diverse school, and it's becoming more diverse every day, as we know. One of the things I've noticed about your school is that you actually, in your announcements, speak in the students' language the best you can.
I have a great accent.
Yes, you have a great accent. But I think it's important to understand that students be able to start their day by hearing things that are common to them, and students hearing what's familiar to them, even if it isn't an accent that is not similar. But seeing a person like yourself, Elisa, that is trying to do that, to actually be proactive from the very outset of the day, right? Obviously, not every student is going to need their information in their language, in Spanish, but it does help. It does help mitigate. And those are some of the tactics, I think, and the strategies that are very, very helpful, that actually help students feel acknowledged, feel appreciated, feel included, and that they belong. And I think some of those tendencies that we have to actually want to punish students stems from not having any of that. And having been in these schools more consistently, more irregularly, following and shadowing Andy a little bit, has actually opened my eyes to that. And I think those are some of the things we have to start asking ourselves, how we're actually doing that and what practices we have. Anyway, that's an observation that I've made, having gone with Andy to some of the classrooms.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just add she has 55% of her staff trained. But when I hear that a student, the same classroom over and over, I always think about the adults and what training they've received. Are they stuck in a pattern and they don't have that solution? And so how we can continue to train people and build a more preventive motion.
I understand, and I agree with all you're saying. I'm just saying, if you're a parent who's being told, just wait for the training, your kid will get math sometime, that gets old, okay? So I get it. I hear you. I understand it, but also, you also have to understand parents are concerned about their own child, okay? Okay, so let's move on. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, might I, in advance of us going to recess here, why don't we stop for a second? Can I revisit E3?
Sure.
I've thought about it. The superintendent slowed me down a little bit. Assistant Director Harlan had a recommendation as well. I've been to a lot of public meetings in my life, and I can remember the half dozen times that there was a call-in vote to break a tie, and people left there, some people left there not feeling very good about the process. And our standard should not be that of any other body. So, including the legislature, I shouldn't justify a call-in vote based on that. And although it's legal, should you choose to do that, I don't know if Michael and I walk out, that I don't know if you get to a quorum, but we don't want to go there either. I guess I would like to reconsider that if you're receptive to a motion to abstain in voting for a candidate to represent Region 10, and just do it right here and now and avoid the call-in, and we are where we are.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd be nay.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, not to do your counting, but I think the motion passes 3-1.
It does, and let me just speak to why.
Okay.
We set it up to do it this way, you know, and now we're changing it last minute. I don't like that. But I understand it, and I'm fine with going with what we're doing.
Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry for the timing and the interruption, and
Okay,
Carry on.
let's, board recess. Let's go back in session. We've left off at school report, Meadow Ridge. And Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Harlan, would you mind introducing that speaker?
Not at all. It is my pleasure, actually, to introduce Christy Gill, who is the principal at Meadow Ridge. I also am so grateful she is here and that we get to hear from her because this is her last week, actually, as principal at Meadow Ridge. And we have Sunshine Price here, who is the new principal at Meadow Ridge. And so we're lucky enough to be able to have them both working together this week in a transition. I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to do that. But I'll hand it over to Principal Gill.
Thank you. All right, there we go. Thank you for having me tonight. Let's see, I will start our mission statement and our vision. We just recently, our ILT met in the summer and fall to reorganize those. So our mission is that Meadow Ridge embraces a growth mindset, ensuring high levels of learning for all through high quality, rigorous instruction, and inspiring a compassionate, inclusive community that instills a love of learning. And our vision is providing a nurturing environment that encourages all students to explore, learn, and succeed. We are K-3, so we do a lot of exploring. Some quick facts. We have about 540 students, plus or minus, and about half and half girls, half boys. We have 70 students on IEPs, and soon to be more. We're moving some kids through the process to get them some additional supports. We have 39 students who are English learners. It's about 7% of our population. Race and ethnicity, we have about 84% of our students are white, and about 15% identify Hispanic, and then about 5% identify American Indian, Asian, Black, or Pacific Islander. And then about 10% of our students identify as 2 or more races. We have about 70 staff members, 35 licensed staff and 34 classified staff, and of our licensed staff, half of them are probationary. So they have joined us in the last 3 years, mostly the last 2 years. 7 kindergartens, 6 first grades, 6 second grades, and 5 third grades. It's a very big school. And then we also have 2 classrooms that serve students with autism. They're specialized placements for students. Our approach. So because we're a K-3, early reading is really one of our priorities. It's the gateway skill to every other content, so we want to make sure that our students become readers. We do adhere to district expectations and protocols regarding our PLCs and our unit mapping and our projection mapping, our CHAMPS expectation. So we follow all district protocols and procedures, but we also recognize that our classrooms and our students are all different. So we flex and scaffold and support in different ways to meet the needs of our students. And we believe in a school-wide approach to everything. So we have really big teams that have to work together. We want all of our kids to have a similar experience, with a little bit of flex given different needs and different teachers. But we all have to come together to support each other every single day in our building. And we believe that we're a village and that we all are in this together. So some of our challenges are staffing and absences. So one challenge that we have had is that we have not had a full staff one single day this year. Leaves and retirements and resignations have created vacancies that we've struggled to fill with substitutes. It's also been extremely difficult to find candidates to hire, and hiring has taken some time because there was a lot of hiring this fall. And then sometimes we've experienced folks agreeing to work for us and then deciding not to when they see what they're going to be paid. So they agree and then rescind their agreement. But
The good news is that this week, we will have almost all of our hiring done. So that's exciting and bodes well for January. Our resource room has been staffed by subs for over a year and a half. And the resource room is where we serve students with disabilities. It's one of the rooms we need the most consistency. And so we've had subs for a year and a half. And then we also need, because of our case management, another half-time teacher to help cover some of the IEPs, minutes that need to be covered. And we have, starting in January, a long-term sub who was a speech and language pathologist in Albany. So she's coming back to be a resource room teacher half-time for us, so she'll be able to meet some of the needs of our students. And then we've also faced a lot of staff absences, and you can see up there 11 absences, 12 absences. We had 17 on Friday, 10 unfilled. So that is a real challenge because every day, like Principal Stevens said, starts with triage, looking at where all of the holes are and then rearranging everybody's schedule so we can just cover lunches and recesses. And so that means that people are taken out of their role supporting classrooms or providing instructional groups just to cover our supervision. So I'm hoping that in January we won't see as many absences. And we are so lucky that we have 3 educational assistants in our building who got emergency licenses so that they can cover our classrooms. So if I'm not covering a classroom or a counselor or a coach, we have 3 support staff who are jumping right in. Like, they are amazing and willing to be flexible, and they just help us out so much. So that has been, despite our absences and staffing woes, that has been a huge thing for us. And what else? Okay, I think that's it for that challenge. So if you have been to Meadow Ridge, you know that it is, without a doubt, the most beautiful school in the school district. It is gorgeous, and our space is fabulous and open and light, and it's the kind of place where kids should be getting an education. It's so incredibly beautiful and built with kids in mind and what they need. But along with that comes space challenges. And so the field that serves our kids has some issues. So like, things weren't installed 100% correctly. So there's some safety issues, like the irrigation covers, they're like raised, and so we just need some shoring up. We have beautiful grounds. Our grounds are so gorgeous, but we don't have staffing to maintain them the way that they should be maintained. Our paint on our walls is a little odd. It's chips and then it peels. And then we have, just like this floor, we have a beautiful concrete floor all around our building, but it has a lot more aggregate in it, and as it cracks, the aggregate comes out. So it makes it really hard to, like run the Zamboni, the Zamboni machines that they use. So if we deposit water in those cracks, it's just not good. So anyways, there's some space issues. It's a beautiful building, but there are some space issues. I have a picture of the threshold molding up there that is glued down and it's coming off, and the wall molding also comes off. There's just some little fixes that need to happen to maintain this beautiful building. One of the biggest challenges for us is that we went from 400 students in 2020 to 500 in 2021 to 550-ish, 540-ish, right? So our population keeps growing, and with that, we see a disproportionate increase in students in special education and students that are medically fragile. So this fall alone, we tripled the number of students that came to us from early childhood education services. So they come in with IFSPs that then become IEPs. Then we have a large number of students that are medically fragile, which just require extra supports to be able to meet their needs. So we have students with diabetes and developmental delays and orthopedic impairments, a lot of anxiety we're seeing in students. feeding tubes, and diapering and toileting assistance. And then the last board meeting, Principal Seals talked about mental health needs at middle school. And we also see mental health needs. They manifest differently in littles. They manifest in aggression, misbehavior, disrespect, and non-compliance, right? So we see a lot of acting out behavior. And the truth is that they just need a lot of support. And like Principal Stevens talked about, we take a skill building approach, and we just need more support with helping them gain the skills that they need to be successful in school. And this is not a new phenomenon at GAPS. It's not a new phenomenon at Oregon. It has been happening for years in Oregon. I started out as a third grade teacher 31 years ago, and I didn't experience the kinds of things that we see regarding mental health in students. For the last 10 years, I've definitely seen in several districts that I've worked in an uptick in the needs of students, and our systems just aren't keeping up to meet their needs. And then because we are a big school and we have 140 kindergarteners, we always have a need for more supervision. Just being in the cafeteria alone with 140 kindergarteners who can't open packages, can't unzip their lunch boxes, can't quite carry trays or open up their cheese sticks. It is hilarious. You have to come watch. I mean, they're really getting it down right now, but it takes a lot of staff just to provide supervision in the lunchroom and then at recess. So come out and see our little kinders. They're pretty amazing now. They're kind of making their way, so it's good. And then one other challenge that's a need for supervision in my building is, our classified employees, they work during the school day for the most part. There's not a whole lot before or after school hours that they work. But my buses don't often come until about 4 o'clock, so I have like 25 to 30 minutes after the school day where I have about 90 students who need supervision. I have to go to meetings sometimes. I try to do as much supervision as I can, but I just need more staff to be able to provide that supervision to keep the kids safe. But the district has listened to my requests for support, and this year they gave me funding for a dean. She's hired. She's had 1 week on the job. This is her second week. My school was the first elementary school in GAPS to get a counselor, and she's fabulous. Keep in mind that my school is double the size of Elisa's, and she has a counselor, and I have a counselor. So that's just some food for thought. And then I also have a Lynn Benton mental health therapist that comes. She comes 2 days a month for us. We could use every week because we could double our supports for students. We have, the district is giving us a half-time or a full-time SLPA. We have one speech and language pathologist. She has a caseload of 67 with more to come. That's a pretty large caseload, so they have given us an SLPA that will help support her. She can't run meetings, but she can serve kids, so that will be great. And then I told you we had a substitute resource room teacher. We've just hired a resource room teacher, and we have a long-term sub working half-time for us starting in January. So it has been a challenging fall, no doubt, but things are coming together. Things are being put into place to support our students. So bear with me because this is long, but there are a lot of points of pride at Meadow Ridge Elementary. Our families and our students and our staff are incredible, and they have a lot of school spirit, and you can see it every day. You would not believe how many different pieces of clothing have butterflies on them. Our students and staff, they constantly come with clothes that have butterflies on them. And it just warms my heart. They have a lot of school spirit. They believe in the Meadow Ridge Monarch way. In fact, we just named our monarch. It's Meadow, right? Kids naming, right. Meadow, the Meadow Ridge Monarch. It's great. Another point of pride, and this is really super important to me because I had a great elementary school experience is that we want to make memories with our kids. So our staff work really hard to build memories with kids. They may not remember that you taught them to read. They may not remember that you taught them multiplication, but they're going to remember that you brought in a pumpkin patch because we couldn't go to the pumpkin patch in 2020. And they're going to remember the firefighter that came in and got into her entire firefighter gear. They're going to remember the monarch butterflies that are, we didn't do monarchs, they're painted ladies, that we released. Like those memories are going to stick with them forever. They're going to remember that they read a story about Mrs. Rumphius, and they who the story is about her making the world a more beautiful place, and she goes around the world doing things to make it beautiful. So they clean our school and they plant flowers, and then they had first grade camp where they did science experiments outside and brought in Smokey the Bear. Like that's amazing. And we brought in a magician. Like, look at the kids' faces. Those experiences will never leave them. And our staff work really hard to provide that. We have a field day where firefighters last year came in and they sprayed our kids. And we have a beautiful garden that students can dig in. This garden was purchased initially with a grant from the Albany Public Schools Foundation, and then Barronbrook gave us an $8,000 donation. So this small project is turning into a really big project, and every single bit of it is volunteer run. It's a great place for our kids to learn where food comes from. And this fall, we grew so many pumpkins that we did a painted pumpkin raffle where kids could earn their butterfly bucks, which are one of the behavioral rewards that when we see kids meeting our expectations, we give them butterfly bucks. And then they put them into the raffle, and then we drew names. So we had like 26 kids going home with pumpkins in October that our staff created for them. And you can see their smiles. They loved it. Some of the other ways that we make memories with our kids is we have a lot of spirit weeks. We have kindness week. We did a global day of play. We did 2-22-22, where you could wear a tiara or a tie or tutus or come as a twin. Those kinds of experiences build a community and provide just a lot of fun for our kids, and they'll take that with them. And then one really big thing for me, and this is something I've done in all of the schools I've worked, and I'm so thankful that GAPS does it as well, is that our students get to see the end of the road when we have our, it went fast, when we have our graduates walk through our halls, and we get to sit and cheer them on. And then we provide a lot of school community events because we're a new school. This is our third year in the building. So we are really building our community, and our parent-teacher committee has done a great job of fundraising for us to buy things that we need to provide support for classrooms. But they also build community, and they support local businesses. So we have single-handedly in 2 years given Burgerville the highest earned nights. The 2 highest earned evenings were our Meadow Ridge community coming in to support our PTC. And then we also brought in Kona Ice this fall for a Friday night recess with the family. So we opened our recess playground and had families come in, and they bought Kona Ice, and we used the money for supports to our classrooms. We have, if everybody doesn't know about that, please come. We have, because we couldn't bring kids and families into our building last year, we provided a drive-through, a Winter Wonderland drive-through, where we clogged up Knox Butte and Timber Ridge for hours as families waited in line to see our little vignettes. So our staff provided these little vignettes about winter, and our kids and their families waited in line for hours to come through. And we're doing it again on Wednesday, so definitely come. And then program-wise, some of my points of pride are our PE program. We have 3 PE teachers that cobble together, make 1.4 FTE, and that just barely covers all of our PE for our students, and they are amazing. They team teach, so 2 classrooms go in at the same time. That allows us to be able to provide 3 PE classes for every class every week. It's not quite meeting the mandated minutes. We'll work on that when we get more FTE and more space to provide that. But right now, they do a great job of building skills and having fun with kids. They just had a fundraiser, an inside jogathon, and they raised $15,000 for more PE equipment. They may build a climbing wall in our small gym. Our music program, we had a sub last year, and the year before we had a very, very part-time teacher. This year we have an amazing teacher who's building a great program. She's teaching the kids skills and getting them ready for middle school choir and band. And then one last thing is that we have our classroom that serves students with autism, and it uses a research-based approach to build the skills of students for whom communication and interactions with others can be challenging. We had, when I shared my slideshow with our parent-teacher committee in November, as I was getting ready and getting their feedback about what they wanted me to talk about, one of our parents talked about her child who has just started this program. He's a kindergartner, and it's life-changing for him when he comes home. He learns routines at school that he's transferring to home, and she just couldn't say enough good things about this program. They do an amazing job. They're short-staffed. They often can't find subs, but they do an amazing job with our students. Okay, and looking forward, my wishes for Meadow Ridge Elementary is that we teach every student to be a reader by 3rd grade. It's a new school, and like I said, we have half of our teaching staff is new. So my hope is that we retain our good staff and we build a community of ownership and commitment. And then, and I talked about this a lot, that what's really important is that we build positive memories for our students. We want them to remember their elementary experience with pride. I can still remember my 3rd grade teacher who taught us piano, or taught us music and had us do like ballroom dancing, and her fingers would click on the piano when she played. Like, I don't know that she taught me anything, but I certainly remember her, and that's what we're trying to do for our students as well. So our students say a lot of really great things about Meadow Ridge. It's a pretty, our school is pretty. It is undoubtedly, and Max is learning a lot. Allison says that it's fun here and people who work here are nice. And then, of course, we have the most amazing play structure. So Lincoln likes the play structure and the steep slide. I have a couple more that I wanted to share before I do that last little bit. I checked in with a few more, and Max also told me, he said, "You want to know one thing I hate about this school?" And I'm like, "Sure." And he said, "Nothing," which I thought was hilarious. He's a 3rd grader. Everything's funny. And then Aiden said that if you encourage people, they can do anything. And my tagline on my Monday announcements, every Monday, I say the same thing to sort of close down my announcements. And if you come to Meadow Ridge, you can ask any one of our students, and they know this. And I always say, remember, team, Meadow Ridge's school-wide expectations are to be safe, be respectful, and be responsible. And as always, remember to manage, lead, succeed, and soar today like a Meadow Ridge monarch. And I guarantee you, ask any one of them, and they will say, you manage, lead, succeed, and soar like a Meadow Ridge monarch. And that is it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
I have some. I don't know if it's for the presenter, but the school is, that building is only how old? We've been in it 3 years?
It's older than 3 years. They finished it, tentatively finished it in March of 2020. That's when they moved in, and then schools closed down, so they didn't get to use it. We started back in 2020, in the fall of 2020, and we did limited in-person instruction, so we had students come into the building. So it is just over 3 years old.
So the paint shouldn't be peeling.
Right. Well, so if you nick it, it can be peeled, and if you don't get to the students quickly enough, it can peel off pretty easy. Or if you put command strips up, it can peel off. Yeah. We patch it as best we can.
Well, somebody got paid a lot of money to build that school. I take it there's no warranty after the check clears? Tell me about that.
Our warranties are over, right?
Yes, so I've heard stories from our facilities team about some extended work where we required contractors and others to come back and make some known issue repairs. To be honest, it predates me by enough that I don't have great information for you, but I can certainly have facilities work with Ms. Gill and get a good list of what those are and see what recourse we might have.
I think she probably has the list.
I imagine.
Things like the sprinkler heads not matching up with the ground is, I mean, that, yeah, just please look into that and see where we come in. So the other thing I heard you say is that you got a counselor.
Yes,
First time.
she's amazing.
So that's distinct and different from the nurse and I thought that we had through public health a nurse, and we also had a counselor. Maybe I'm calling it the wrong position, but help me with that. What is our health department? What are those positions in your school, and are they there?
So we don't have a nurse that is at our school full-time, but she does serve several schools. Like she serves Timber Ridge and Meadow Ridge. So we do have a nurse come in regularly, and she helps us out with a lot of
But
our
you don't have
medically
one
fragile
assigned to your
students.
school?
Sorry?
You don't have one assigned to your school?
She's assigned to us. She's not there full-time.
Okay.
I don't think any schools have full-time nurses. No.
The high schools do not?
We have district-wide, I believe, 5 nurses, of which after the first of the year, we will have 3. We're trying to contract out with an agency for some, so no school is assigned a full-time nurse. We simply don't have, nurses are assigned several schools. They might be assigned 4 or 5. The ones that serve the high school as part of theirs might have an office or a home base at the high school, but we have 21 schools and we have 5 district nurses, and we aren't fully staffed there even. So I would say at this point we have 4, and 1 is a contract nurse from an outside agency.
Okay, it's from a different presentation from a different meeting, so I won't delve any further into that. Just thank you. Thank you for the enthusiasm that you approach your job. Thank you for leading the school. I hear nothing but great things from families who have kids in your school. Appreciate it.
Thank you. They make it easy. It's a great place to work. So thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question. And this applied to both your presentation and Lafayette's presentation. I love to see when you highlight where your goals, your actions align with the district strategic plan. I mean, that is, including the talk of social emotional learning, so important, and I don't think sometimes you hear it's not separate from student success. It's very much a part of student success. And so just thank you for highlighting how you align with the goals that, well, we didn't say, we agreed to, but that the planning team put together.
Well, I appreciate that. I came from a smaller district, and we didn't have as coordinated an effort at the district level regarding protocols and procedures and systems. So thank you for giving that to the school district. It makes a huge difference coming from a different district. Things are in place, and we know what we're supposed to do, and we have an awesome curriculum director who leads us through all of that. It has been just a pleasure, coming into a district where things are in place that lead me to do the best that I can do in my building. It sort of takes the white noise out of it and lets me focus on what's important. So thank you.
So we had a conversation during the listening session about some kids. Andy, you want to describe that? And I mean, tell it.
Are
Staffing
you talking the
levels.
special classroom? And
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just the lack of stability due to wages, absences, turnover, those kind of things. And I know you see that,
Yeah.
particularly in your classified.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, it is a struggle. The program is very research-based, and in order to do the program as designed, it does require full staffing, and we almost never have full staffing. So they really do their best. They work really hard to do as much as they can. But imagine where we could get our kids if we had that full staffing. Their hearts are in it. They really work hard, and they do amazing things. I told you, like, we're seeing successes, but we could go so much further if we just had everything in place and some stability there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next up, consent agenda, personnel license. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve personnel licensed as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Personnel classified. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve personnel classified as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes from November 21, 22, regular board meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes from 11/21/2022, regular board meeting as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, on to old business. None. Reports? None. Bond business reports? None. New business? Okay, the CET tax increase. Jane?
Good evening. I'm recommending to the board,
Speak into it.
I'm recommending that the board increase the construction excise tax from its current rate of $1 per square foot to $1.26. And this is not, the Oregon Department of Revenue each year puts out a recommended rate. This is not the current recommended rate, but it moves the district closer. It has been since 2012 that we have increased this construction excise tax. And the construction excise tax can only be used for new construction, so it's designed to set the district up to help us increase our square footage.
So just to speak to it a little bit so people understand it, so $1.26 would move it from $1 to $1.26 for each square foot of new building being done, correct?
Correct.
And right now, the state is approved for what level? I think it was 145 or 146?
141.
Okay, 141. Our neighbors, Corvallis, does something slightly different. Andy, could you talk to that?
Yeah, Corvallis has $1 a square foot, but they also have a local option, which rests on every household in the district, not just new construction. Lebanon has $1.25 per square foot. They do not have a local option tax. So Corvallis, with its load on every household with a local option, also has $1 in this tax to boot. Lebanon just has $1.25. They do not have a local option. We do not have a local option.
What is Lebanon's local option? Do you know
Lebanon
about-
does not have one.
No, not Lebanon, Corrales, what value do they have on that?
I don't know what they charge. That is charged to every household in the district and can go to regular district programs. This does not yield that much and can only go towards building and offsetting the costs that new construction creates for the district.
Okay. One of the things I've heard from the community about this is that where is this money going? And my understanding is, in the past, we saved this money for a while and set it aside, but 80–90% of this money has gone to the new bus barn. Is that correct?
I don't know how much this has taken in since 2012. I do know that we did put $3 million to the bus barn.
Yes,
And that's a larger chunk of the money, correct?
it is.
Any other board members want to speak to this at all?
Yeah, I'll speak a lot to it. We wrestle as a community, I think Oregon wrestles it with the state, of how you pay for growth. Most other states have a sales tax, and the larger the economy grows, the more revenue there is, and that's how they address that. The last bond amount was substantial. It was a substantial burden to seniors on fixed incomes in particular. This tax and increasing the tax by 25 cents or $25, depending on how you run it out, is worthy of doing. But it is, in my view, like the water I have left in my water bottle here in the way of how we address facilities and structures and growth going forward. And so I'm okay with it, but I would just caution all of us that we need to work yearly on getting there. We need to not, and it's part of the reason, a big part of the reason that I am where I am with Central School. You can close a school that's an old school over, well, I don't know what the number is to upgrade it today, but the cost in replacing that and how we're going to pay for that, we don't have a play in our playbook to do that without it being a substantial burden on some people who are least able to afford it. So I want to keep all that in mind, and we should be careful with what we're doing with this money and how we're doing it. I heard last time we were out for a bond, I wasn't part of the we then, but it was, hey, what about that excise tax? How come you're having to charge us because you're doing the excise tax? And we all just need to understand that there's a lot of work we all have to do on a yearly budget kind of basis to make that number be as low as it can be when they get around to asking the public for money again. So with that long-winded statement, I would move approval.
Anyone else want to speak to it?
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating to look back that this money, going way back to 2012, I believe, has kind of been left on the table from when it was set as $1 and then it just sat there. But growth, this is on new construction, and we are not levying the entire amount that we could. And this is an example. The city of Albany is growing tremendously and is approving a lot of new projects. And I know schools are important because when they put in a new division, a new subdivision, they talk to sell it. They talk about good schools. And this is a way for growth to kind of in a small way, pay for those expenses that are going to hit all of us. I think previous boards decided to use the construction excise tax towards the new bus facility because they knew the bond work was beginning, and so they felt like they could take a pause and put that into the bus facility, which was absolutely needed, and clearly driving kids around is very much a part of growth. So no one likes to raise tax, but you know, if you're going to put kids first, you know, I think you got to give them the resources. And we have found, without even trying very hard, that the needs are out there. So yeah, I support this.
Brad?
Yeah, thank you, Pete. I get concerned often, you know, we keep asking the public for funds and doing that. And sometimes I think we're hesitant to look at the expense side because there's two sides of these equations. As a district, I want to make sure that we're taking a good look at how we're taking this money and how we're spending it. I know that this one's earmarked for construction, but speaking of the budget overall, that we need to be really cognizant of we're having an economy that's starting to slow, high probability of recession, and we need to be making sure that we're taking care of the money the best way we can to try to get the best education for our students. And so I just want to encourage everyone to remember the expense side of the equation and to control that to the best of our ability.
I kind of talked to this already, but for me, this tax has not been increased for 10 years. The value of our homes, you know, a 2,000 square foot home 10 years ago compared to what it costs today has definitely gone up over 25%. So to me, this is just keeping up with inflation, unfortunately. I agree with the way we're taking it to raise it, not to the full amount, but to an amount that helps us pay for our children and their futures. I'm ready to hear a motion unless someone else wants. Go ahead, Roger.
I made one, you need a second.
Okay. Yes, I need a second on Roger's motion.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. M2, budget correction. Ms. Jane.
Yes. So the correction that I've proposed to you is to comply with state budget law. So I learned that we have a transfer into the general fund of $1.1 million, but the offsetting transfer out was not budgeted. So I'm asking the board tonight to increase the general fund beginning fund balance by $1.1 million, and that will take the place of the transfer in. It will keep the general fund revenue and expenses in balance. And then the second piece of my request is in the special revenue fund. Budget law requires a 5,000 expenditure function level to be divided so that the transfer out shows, which is 5,200, and debt service, which is 5,100 shows. So I'm asking you tonight to divide those and clarify those specifically. And again, it is not a change in the total expenses or revenue. It's merely the 5,000 function. It's a housekeeping item to comply with budget law.
I move to approve as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, I have a question. I assume that we're doing this and there's no requirement to advertise and go out for a supplemental budget.
That's correct. I just need to submit your resolution to the State Department and we will be in compliance.
Okay, it's not that we were out of compliance, it was what we did about it and when we did it, when we knew about it. And it took us a matter of seconds, for the record.
Right.
Director Nyquist, I appreciated that you voted before you asked the question.
Okay. Future agenda items, other business. Future dates of interest, I'll talk about that real quick before we adjourn. December 16th, we got pre-planning. January 9th, we have a regular board meeting. And then January 23rd, we have another regular board meeting, both at the district office. Go ahead, Roger.
I just want to make sure that we get into the record, and I don't know what you do with the district website or how we do it, but I think we need to be very transparent with the taxpayers, the parents, the team here about what happened when we approved the budget and why this change was necessary and how we've gone about it, because it's serious, serious stuff.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move to adjourn? Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn at 9:05.